I was standing in my driveway when every light in my house suddenly went dark. The refrigerator stopped humming, the air conditioner shut down, and even the street-facing security cameras lost power. At first, I thought it was a normal outage. Then I noticed something strange. Every house around me still had electricity. I grabbed my phone and walked outside. Across the street, neighbors were watching television through their windows. Porch lights were glowing. The outage affected only one property, mine. That wasn't an accident. Somebody had deliberately disconnected my service. I followed the line toward the utility pole and found fresh tire tracks near the roadside. The grass was flattened, and there were signs that a crew had recently been there. Whoever did this wanted me left in the dark without warning. A neighbor walked over and quietly told me he had seen workers earlier that day. They arrived in a utility truck and spent nearly 45 minutes near my property. Standing nearby and giving instructions was HOA President Susan Miller. The moment I heard her name, everything started making sense instantly. For months, Susan had been trying to pressure me into selling 2 acres of land next to the community entrance. She wanted the HOA to build a decorative expansion project there. I had repeatedly refused her demands firmly. Instead of accepting my answer, she began sending violation notices. Then came fines. Then threats of legal action. Every attempt failed because I knew the rules better than she did. Apparently, she decided to try a new trick. I drove to the HOA clubhouse and walked straight inside. Susan was standing near the front desk, wearing a bright yellow business suit and a smile that told me she thought she had already won. When I asked why my power had been disconnected, she casually shrugged. She claimed the HOA had received reports about unsafe utility equipment on my property and took action to protect the neighborhood. I asked for documentation. She couldn't provide any. I asked for utility authorization. She couldn't provide that either. Yet she still acted as though she was completely untouchable. What Susan didn't know was that I wasn't just another homeowner in this neighborhood. Years earlier, I had purchased a regional power company that supplied electricity to several communities, including hers. I rarely talked about it because I preferred a quiet life. Instead of arguing, I simply thanked her politely. The smile on her face suggested she believed the conversation was over. In reality, it had just begun. Back at my office, I contacted our operations center and requested every service record related to my property address. Within minutes, technicians confirmed what I already suspected. No authorized work order existed. The crew that disconnected my property had never received approval from the utility company. Someone had ordered contractors to interfere with electrical infrastructure without proper authorization. That was a serious problem. I scheduled an emergency meeting with our legal department. Attorneys, engineers, and compliance officers gathered around a large conference table while I explained exactly what had happened. As they reviewed the evidence, expressions around the room changed from curiosity to concern. Unauthorized interference with utility service exposed everyone involved to major liability. The next Tuesday morning, company investigators visited the site. They photographed equipment, inspected service connections, and documented every detail. Their findings matched our records perfectly well. Meanwhile, Susan continued celebrating. According to several residents, she told people the HOA had finally put me in my place. She seemed convinced there would be no consequences. 5 days later, official notices arrived. Notices arrived at the HOA office. Investigators requested documents, communications, invoices, contractor agreements, and records related to the outage. That confidence Susan had been showing suddenly disappeared entirely. She called emergency board meetings. She hired attorneys. She demanded explanations from contractors who had assured her everything was legal. Unfortunately for her, paperwork tells the truth. Emails showed that the HOA board had approved the project internally without contacting the utility company. Contractors had relied entirely on HOA instructions rather than proper authorization. As more facts surfaced, homeowners became absolutely furious. Many residents had no idea the board was taking such extreme actions. They attended meetings demanding answers. Questions came from every direction. Why was HOA money used for this? Who approved it? Why wasn't legal advice obtained first? Most importantly, why target a homeowner over a property dispute? Susan struggled to answer. Every explanation created even more problems. Our company eventually completed its investigation and released it. The report concluded that utility infrastructure had been interfered with without authorization, and that service had been disrupted improperly. The HOA faced significant financial exposure. Insurance providers became involved. Attorneys became involved. Regulators reviewed the situation. Suddenly, what Susan thought was a simple power play had become a very expensive mistake. Residents started organizing petitions demanding changes within the HOA. Board members who once supported Susan began distancing themselves from her decisions. At one particularly tense meeting, several homeowners openly criticized the board's actions. The room was packed. Emotions ran very high. Nobody wanted their community associated with such behavior. 3 weeks later, the HOA voted on leadership changes. The result wasn't close. Residents wanted accountability and a fresh start. Susan left the clubhouse. Susan left the clubhouse carrying a box of personal belongings. The same people who once applauded her decisions now watched in silence as she walked to her car. As for me, my power had been restored long before this event. Life returned to normal. The lights stayed on, the neighborhood settled down, and the dispute finally came to an end. Standing on my front porch one evening, I looked across a quiet community. The kids were riding bicycles now. Families were walking their dogs. Everything felt peaceful again. The moment people stopped believing they're above the rules, those rules have a way of reminding them otherwise. Thanks for watching HO Drama Neighbor today. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe for more HO Drama Neighbor stories every single week. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below. See you in the next boundary battle, folks.